How do I hide it? Ah! We're there. Good morning, everyone. Morning, Gina. We got away with so many non-technical hitches. Had a slight one there where I closed down the browser window. Wonderful, well done. Morning, Jenny. I think then I've got my sound on, the video's working. You guys are here. So, yeah, I've got a coffee. So if anyone's got a coffee, you'll join me. It's going to be one of them Sunday mornings where we're just going to go through a lot of stuff. We've got quite a lot. I've had so many questions and things to cover, so we've got quite a lot for this session. So I'm probably going to pick it out and probably do two, but we're going to be doing buttercream and piping this morning. I'm going to go through various bits and pieces. I've had questions about piping nozzles and flavours and different styles for piping and piping in the heat and the humidity. So I'm going to try and answer as many as I can as we go through, but please just any questions, just drop them in the comments as well as we go through. So I'll be keeping an eye on the stream and we can answer them and everything. But like I say, I probably will end up doing this as two sessions because there's quite a lot. But it's Father's Day and everything like that. So if you're doing something exciting today, well, go do things like that, and you can catch up on this later. So where to start? I have so much here, so many things to go through, but I've been sort of collecting as much as I can. And I used to do this sort of when I had the shop. We used to do a cupcake decorating class. So a lot of it I sort of taught then. I'm going to be going through again now, but it's really good anyway, just to get these things. And it's not just for cupcakes. You can use all the techniques and things for cakes as well, and if you're piping creams and all of that sort of stuff. So before I get into all of this, yesterday I did bake some chocolate cupcakes. So we have a tin of fresh chocolate cupcakes, and these are just regular chocolate, just nothing very overly exciting about them, but there's a recipe for this on the blog, so I'll link to that recipe as well. So we've got, they smell amazing. Now I've lifted the lid off the tin that they've been in the tea all night. They smell fantastic. So we're going to ice those. Just move that there for the moment. And then we've got all sorts. Obviously, I'm going to go through a no-fail buttercream recipe. I've had one that I've used for years, but I've been tweaking it recently just to make it a little bit more lighter and airier. So I'm going to be going through that with you, but it's a really simple one. We're not doing anything with sugar, we're not doing Swiss meringue, it's just a regular standard classic buttercream, butter, sugar, and you're adding bits. We're going to go through things like colours, the things that I use, different things that you can use if you want to, what's in the supermarket, what's in places like Hobbycraft, things to put on top, because we're going to be doing a little bit of decorating as well, and what to do with all those sprinkles that you end up with bits and pieces of ones just hanging around. Flavourings, so I've got all sorts. We've got things like vanilla bean paste, but we're talking about the extracts as well as the flavourings that you can pick up in the supermarket. And most importantly, we're going to talk about our nozzles, piping bags and different things. So I've got a selection of my favourites in here. There's all sorts. I'm telling you about the one that I use the most and you'll see most used out there And these are just the standard ones. There are really fancy ones like Russian piping tips and stuff. If we get time, I might, we'll talk about them when we talk about the tips, but I won't have time to show you how to use them today, but I will do that again in another one because they're really pretty. And obviously things to put your nozzles in, so piping bags as well. And just a few little bits and pieces I've got around cases as well. So we'll get all on to that when we, we get into the cupcakes. So first up is our buttercream. And there's so many different recipes out there. You've got things just like a classic buttercream that most of us are using, just butter and icing sugar or powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar, wherever you are in the world. You've got things like Italian meringue and Swiss meringue, where we're warming sugar and we're using that to get a really thick and smooth and creamy buttercream, and it is beautiful. I mean, it's just like boiling sugar and everything. I'll probably do that as a separate video, so I've got time to film it properly for you guys. So we're just going to do a classic buttercream this morning with icing sugar and butter. This is the messy bit. This is the bit I don't like. Gets everywhere. So I'm just using a standard block of, well, it was whatever I could get on the shopping order. We've got Country Life and we've got Anchor. These are both slightly salted. You'll find a lot of recipes call for unsalted. If you want to use unsalted, by all means, go ahead. It's fine. There's no difference in how it's going to make your buttercream come together. I just find, and I think I've said before, that the salt just gives it that little edge. It helps bring the creaminess out in the cream, and the butter helps lift the flavour as well. So you'll find some recipes, if they're using unsalted, they'll also say add a pinch of salt. I just go straight in. Here we've got, you know, in the UK, salted or slightly salted butter's a lot easier to get hold of. So I go straight in with this. And these have been out overnight, so I'm trying not to squidge them, because if I push them, they're going to go very squeezy and squeeze out the side. But you can, the best thing to do, I find, is if you are making buttercream, you know you're going to be making it, if you get this out the night before, just leave it on the side and it will get nice and soft overnight. So you can handle it. If it's straight from the fridge and it's too cold, when we whisk our buttercream, it's going to be too thick, too claggy. You want a really nice light buttercream that when you pipe, you're not forcing out of the piping nozzle. You want just to be able to apply a gentle pressure and it's coming out. So we start off with nice soft butter. If you have to take it straight from the fridge, if you've got a microwave, just literally, you don't want to melt it, obviously take it out of the foil wrapper, but maybe just give it 10-15 seconds just on blast, just to soften it up, but you don't want it to be melting. If it's melted, it's not going to come together. So room temperature soft, if you can, the night before. You'll find butters as well will look very different in colour, in yellow. Anchor butter is really yellow. So when you make just a straightforward vanilla buttercream, you're going to see that it's got that creamy tint, whereas the Country Life is slightly paler. But sorry, Lou, quick question. Maybe you've covered it. Would baking butter do the one perfect for biscuits and pastry? Right, great question, Gina. I can show your comment so people can see what we're talking about. So, great question, baking butter. You can use it if you're looking for a nice, smooth, creamy buttercream. Real butter is going to be your friend because of the fat content. Things like stork or the margarines that you have, they've got higher water content, which makes them spreadable. You'll see things that are They say spreadable butter or cake butter. It's got a higher water content. It's great for if you're baking because it will give you a nice light, fluffy cake as it bakes. That moisture is all sort of in the cake. It's making it nice, light and airy. Buttercream, you can use it. You know, people do use it and you can use it. It's that content, because when we whip it, we don't want to be getting, you'll slacken the butter, and if it's got that higher water content, it's going to slacken off too much. So when you pipe it, you might see when people have piped it before, it sort of looks like it's not melting, but maybe it's collapsed a little. So you want something with like a nice high, they're not healthy, fat content. So yeah, that makes sense as to why my buttercream always curdle. I've been using the wrong one. No worries. It will, yes, it will curdle as well. So you can do it. You need to sort of use, so if you're doing like a vegan buttercream, which is made with like a vegan margarine, or they typically have a high water, high oil content, because obviously they've not got the dairy in them. You'd blend that with vegetable shortening, things like Trex, which has got a higher fat content, which helps combine the two together and help it give some structure. And you would then use a lot of powdered sugar, icing sugar, to help stiffen that back up. So you might find that things like vegan buttercream, it's a lot sweeter. It's because it's got a lot of sugar in it to help counteract the water content in them. And you'll find the same sort of thing happening if you make cream cheese frosting, where you're using a predominantly cream cheese rather than things like butter or some fat content in that to bring it all together. If you over whip the cream cheese, it has a high water content, so it becomes slack as well. So you can use it, but if you're not averse to using full fat butter, that's what I'd definitely go for. It helps. It gives it a creamier flavour, but it helps with that structure and keep our swirl when we pipe it together. So, butter, yes. So we're going to pop this in. I was talking about the colour of butter. Continental butters, things like Lurpak, El Presidente, they tend to be a lot paler in colour as well. So if you're looking for a naturally paler buttercream, then that's the sort of butter that you can go for. And again, they do slightly salted, etc. So we're going to do this with our KitchenAid, the stand mixer. You can also do it with a handheld mixer as well. You can do it by hand, but what we want to do is we want to bring in the air. If you think of it a bit like when you're making meringues, when you're whipping it up and you're bringing all that air in, that's what we're looking to do here. So you can use two of the attachments, like the paddle whisk. So if you're using a handheld mixer, this would be very similar. You can use this, or you can use the balloon whisk, and this is going to help incorporate that air into our butter. So I'm going to make a batch enough for the 12 cupcakes we've got. So I'm going to go in with 250 grams of butter. And then the easiest way I remember it is that whatever I put in of butter, I double of sugar. So it's because that's how scary it sounds, like a lot of sugar. So 250 grams of softened room temperature butter with 500 grams of icing sugar. So I'm just literally going to pop this straight in. As you can see, oh, you might not be able to see because of the light from the window. It's soft, I can see it. It's got that soft buttery sheen on the top. It's really soft. So normally I might just break it up a little bit more, but I'm just going to go straight in this morning with that. Let's get rid of that. And I am just going to just with my spatula, just give it a little bit of a helping hand. You don't have to, but it's really, really soft. I mean, there was no pressure there and it just broke that up. So that's the sort of where we want to start with how our cupcake, how our buttercream, apologies, starts. I'm just going to put that in a dish. So first off, before we add any sugar, I'm just going to start whipping this on low with that balloon whisk, just to sort of get it a bit creamier, a bit lifted. We are on. You think like we're doing cream. So whilst that's going, the next thing we can do, whilst we're just getting that fine, is our icing sugar. Now, some icing sugars are really fine. You might not need to sieve it before, but I sometimes find that, you know, they've been stood a while, or even before they get to you, they might be quite solid. So I'm just going to sieve through my 500 grams. Just give that a moment at high. Bit noisy this one. I had a dream last night about having the KitchenAid service. It's definitely due one. So yes, we're going to sieve our icing sugar. We're going to sieve 500 grams straight into a bowl. So that's quite a lot. So I'm going to do it in stages. The thing with icing sugar is it gets everywhere. And part of the reason as well for whisking the butter up as well is it means that when we add the icing sugar, it's not so, it's got something for it to stick to. Because if we put the icing sugar in and our butter's still solid, or it's still blocked, the icing sugar it's got nothing to stick to, so it's just going to cloud up into your face and onto your mixer and onto every single work surface and thing you can find. Icing sugar takes a while to sieve, I'm sorry. So let's just give it a helping hand through. So whilst we're here, I'm just sieving. I talked to you about some of the things that I use. So we're going to fill some of the cupcakes as well. And you can fill them with all sorts. You can fill them with spreads, you can fill them with extra buttercream, with extra like chocolate sauce or Nutella, like the cookie bars last week. We're going to fill ours with my jar of sprinkles. We're going to do some pinata cupcakes. And hopefully we're going to get time and do some rainbow frosting as well. Hold on, let's go in with a bit more. This is my first half of the icing sugar. I get quite a lot of lumps in my icing sugar, so it just helps. And again, it's just it's a bit like when you sieve flour, it's getting a little bit of extra air in there as well. And this is a base recipe. It's not going to have any flavours or any colouring until the end. So you can use this for all sorts. You can use it for chocolate ones, lemon ones, strawberry ones. And I'll talk to you about how we do that in a moment. So this is my first half of icing sugar sieved. And I'm just going to add it a little at a time. Again, I don't want it to blow up into my face or everywhere. I just want the icing sugar to mix well. So if I was doing this normally, I'd probably just take it a little bit at a time and add a spoonful at a time. But we've been here till Christmas, when the first lot's mixed in, add the next. And the thing as well is because your butter's nice and soft, it will incorporate quite easily. We don't need to add any extra liquid just yet at this point to help it. So a little bit more. Probably. And you'll also notice that your butter does start to get a little paler as it's mixed together. Whisking it up helps. And probably the last bit of this bowl in. This is the long bit, I'm sorry. And whilst this sievers some more, I'm just going to let that whip up. And as you can see, we haven't had any billowing icing sugar declaring, so it's quite a neat way of doing it. It's a lot tidier. So that was 250, so I'm going to go in with my second 250, just sieving it through here. It is messy. And you can get things now like flavoured icing sugars. I've seen typically from the cake stores online or places like Hobbycraft, if you've got all like home. I think you can get them in places like Home Bargains as well. They actually have a really good budget cupcake range of things they've built. They've developed with Jane Asher, so only second to Mary Berry and Cakes. Just helping my icing sugar through. So I've got another 150 to go. I'm just going to show you it. As you can see, it's got a lot paler than it was when we put the butter in to start with. That should be thick enough to just show you. So it's got quite pale and thick. I'm going to give this a scrape down because I've got the icing sugar around the side. Well, we want to get it all combined in. Just put that there. Oh, my spoon. We got onto the good bit in there. But it's just taking your time and doing it, and it will be no fail. We want to be able to, if you're using it for like the chocolate tray bake we did the other week, we want to be able just to put it on and then really smooth it really gently with the palette knife across. And then, while that's doing its last mix, I will do the last section of our icing sugar. 150. Right. And you've got different sorts, like you've got Taste Iron and Silver Spoon, but there's lots of things. Own brand ones work as well. So I'm just going to do the sieve of that last lot, and then we're almost there. I say it's worth just spending a little extra time on getting your buttercream nice Creamy. Just going to lift that, and I'm just going to finish off. If you have got a hand mixer, obviously you'll be doing it by hand. If you've got a stand mixer, a KitchenAid, or a Kenwood, or anything, or some of the, I was looking on Amazon, there's some really good ones the way you've got, actually they use the hand mixer and it's built into the, like into the stand, so budget wise and things, they really work as well, and they'll all do the trick. It's just going easy with it, not overdoing it, letting the mixer do its thing, and it will get there. So I'm just going to put half of that in the bottom. Oh. We've been all right until that point. I'm just going to clean that one up. That's what you don't want it to do. And with icing sugar, the quicker you get it cleaned up, the better, because it will get sticky, otherwise it gets everywhere. And lastly, I'm going to give this a scrape down. You'll find that maybe sometimes the butter, the icing sugar, sits in the bottom, so just give it a scrape in from that bottom bit. I'm going to put a little bit in there. Actually, I'm just going to, we don't have another blow, I'm just going to mix that through, put that on, just give it a thing through there. I'm not having to push this at all, it's so light, so light. I'm in awe of your KitchenAid. It's Gina, it's so old, it is in desperate need of a service. I'm missing knobs and it's temperamental and extract, but it's a workhorse, it really is. If Amazon Prime do Prime Day, if they still do that in a couple of months, whatever, they usually have some really good offers. Right, let's get cracking with the rest of the buttercream. So I've got it now, it's smooth, but it started to thicken up as well a little bit. So at this point, I'm going to add just a drop of milk and scrape it on there just to make it a little smoother. The icing sugar is thickening it up basically. So I'm just going to pop that in, and just like about a teaspoon or so of milk just to help smooth it back out. How are we doing? Morning, Amita. What's been quite scary is that people have been sending me pictures of me up on their telly. I know me, Taz, and my brother, and all my friends. It's been so lovely. It's like, you're on telly. So, just adding that little drop of milk is just giving it a little bit have a lighter touch again, so we can get started. Now, if you're adding flavours or anything, this is the point you want to do it. It's easier to do it here whilst you've got the buttercream on the mixer. It's because it means you can combine it in. So let's talk about flavours. I'm just going to go in with a vanilla one today. So I'm just going to use trusty vanilla bean paste like I normally do. I'm just going to put a little squeeze of this in. You can use vanilla extract, vanilla essence, anything like that you can use. Just add it as a teaspoon at a time, whisk it through, give it a good whisk through and give a taste, see how it is. And go in and add it all at once, because again, any liquid now that we add to this is going to start to slacken that mixture again. So we want to keep it, want to try and keep it at the consistency that we've got it at, which is nice and smooth and pliable. My test is if I take a spoon or a palette knife or anything like that, is that I can, she says what she's done with her spoon. Hope that doesn't fall off. So my test is if I can put the spoon in and I can literally just drag and smooth it across and the buttercream sticks, I'm not having to force it through or anything like that. And that's the point, that's the consistency that I want for my buttercream. I don't want anything that's thick and when I pipe it, I'm going to have to fight with it. So that's my test. I'll just drag a spoon through and make sure that it's at that consistency. So adding any flavour now is going to slacken that off. If we add too much liquid or anything like that, we're going to have to counterbalance that with more icing sugar. So I'm going in with a little bit of vanilla bean paste. I'll put this in and just whiz it through, and we'll talk about some of the other things that you can use. This just gives a really strong vanilla flavour. I really love it. So you'll find in the supermarket now, you can get a variety of flavouring. So ones that I typically use are things like peppermint. Nielsen Massey, this is peppermint extract. It's really quite strong. You only need like half a teaspoon, but it's great for Christmas. If you want like mint chop things, I use it in my mint chop ice cream as well. It lasts a really long time, but you can use it in other things. It doesn't have to just be in buttercream. That is expensive, but it's a good little bottle and it's really good quality. Things like Waitrose, one I think this is, but Dr. Oetker and all the supermarkets do their own brand. You can get it as a smaller, cheaper bottle as well. This is a natural extract, so they're both the same. They just tend to have different quantities of peppermint in it to give it that flavour. So this doesn't have the percentage on it, whereas this one does. It's 1. They do things as well. You might see them in Lakeland. I think they're called Star Key or something, in little bottles like this as well. They do a rose one, so if you like Turkish Delight, this is like a rose water extract. There's all sorts out there, caramels and things. These are ones I picked up in Sainsbury's. I've not had a chance to use them, but I thought, oh, I'll pick them up. This is gin and tonic and Prosecco. Doesn't stop you putting gin and tonic and Prosecco into your cupcakes though. And things like, this was one I was sent to try. This is a Dr. Oetker caramel, but I would typically use my caramel sauce or a dulce de leche. So you can buy flavours off the shelf. But things then like strawberry, lemon, I would use the fruit themselves. With things like strawberry or raspberry, I get the fresh fruit. and with like a mini hand blender, or you can mash through with a fork. I'd make it into a puree, like a strawberry puree or a raspberry puree. With lemon, the lemon juice is quite acidic, as we know, so it's going to have a moment with the butter, and it can cause it to curdle. So again, just a drop at a time. If you're doing that, half a teaspoon, mix it through, see how it is, see how the consistency is, taste it, and then add a little bit more if you want, and bring it through. With things like chocolate, I would go with replacing about 50 grams of the icing sugar with my cocoa powder. But we said before, cocoa is quite drying, so I'd want to add something to, again, counteract that. So I would melt about 50 grams of chocolate as well into my buttercream. So I'd melt the chocolate first, like we've done, let it cool a bit. We don't want to cook our buttercream. I'd let it cool and then add that chocolate. Again, like we've just done at the end with the milk, I'd add the melted chocolate there and bring it through. But things like chocolate and strawberries, but things like raspberries that have pips in, you have to remember then that when you're piping it, you don't want them to obstruct in your piping nozzle. So things like Oreo buttercream, crush the Oreos up, really crush them up in a little mini blender so you get a fine powder, and then you can put it through the buttercream. Tastes amazing. Don't scrape out the cream, just put them all straight in, crush the Oreos up, and then add a little bit at a time into your buttercream at this stage. Again, and it'll help, but make sure it's really fine. We've got things like our round nozzle where, you know, we've got quite a big hole. We're going to be able to get some chunks through this. But when we're looking at things like the smaller nozzles, this is a 1N, so it's got a smaller opening, or things that have got like this 1E where the nozzle actually is rounded off and our edges are bent over, we're not going to get anything through that, and you could be like, oh, take it all apart and unwedge the bit of Oreo crumb that's stuck in the bottom. So we want to make sure that we're anything that we add for our flavouring is fine enough to mix through, fine enough to go through a nozzle if that's what we intend on doing it. If we're just dumping it on a cake and spatulaing it over, well, it doesn't matter. You know, you might tear the cake or something, but it's not as much as if we're piping. So, down, sip of coffee. I hope this is making sense. I am going to do a whole post on this as well. And I think we'll do a second one because there's so much to cover. But I really wanted to talk to you about the buttercream as well. Things like, I know Pat mentioned about humidity and the heat. Obviously, we're not in, I'm not in South America, like Southern America, or anywhere where it's really, really hot. I wish it was. We are now in summer. But even in the UK, it can get really warm. And Amita, if she's still here, when I did her wedding cake a couple of years ago, it was the hottest day of the year, and the entire thing was buttercream ice. And I had to, I set up on site and iced whilst I was there. If you're doing things like that, you can get away with it and keep the buttercream chilled as much as possible. But obviously, you don't want to chill it too much because otherwise you can't pipe it. So if it is hot and humid, your butter as well is going to slacken really quickly. So when I've done it before in the past, what I've done is I've got my buttercream to this stage. I've determined that actually it is going to be too slack. If I pipe this now, it's just going to melt. It was still, it was still standing meat. It absolutely still stood at the end of the day. Could see the buttercream at one point sliding down. It was so hot, so hot. So yeah, if you are going to be doing this at home, if you're making your buttercream, Try and make it when it's cooler in the day. I mean, that's number one. Make it when it's cooler in the day. If you can get away with it and ice it, then and it'll help. And then you can fridge the cake if you want to, just to hold it all together. If you are making it ahead and you're not icing it, then you can chill it. But remember, you need to then bring it out of the chiller a good, well, it depends how warm it is where it is. It might be 15 minutes, it might be 10 minutes, you know, it could be, you might need half an hour, but bring it out before, let it come up to temperature, which means you're not then trying to have to beat it down on the temperature. It's coming up to a temperature that's manageable. Keep an eye on it and then pipe it. Remember, you want it to have some hold where you can pipe it through. And they say things though, like Swiss meringue and the French meringue buttercreams, because of the boiled sugar, because we've brought that sugar up to temperature and it's been heated, it has a little bit more stability in the heat. The school's out on that one. I've tried both and they both come out. They've both got an absolute ton of butter in. So, and that's what we're fighting with the elements. The butter is going to melt, unfortunately. But if you can, chill it for a little bit. And things like, if you want to, you can add things like the vegetable shortening, the Trex, which will help give it a little bit more stability. What we don't want to do is add far too much icing sugar, because the icing sugar will help keep it stiff, but you're then just going to taste the icing sugar. You're not going to taste anything else in there. So yeah, flavour wise, go with things like you can get in the supermarkets. These are great, and then you can use them for all sorts. If you've got some fruit or some caramel sauce or chocolate sauce or any of those sort of things, I tend to just use them up. You know, if we're making buttercream, then I'll see what's in the fridge. You can use things like freeze-dried strawberries and raspberries as well, you know, powder it through and things. You just have to remember that whatever you're adding, if it's in a liquid form, you're adding liquid to something. So you don't want to add too much, just add it gently, a bit at a time. Things like coffee, you know, a bit like we've done with the chocolate cake, make it a really strong sort of shot of coffee and then add that a little bit at a time, but make sure it's cool because we don't want to cook the butter. So let's see, on to our buttercreams. This has just had a moment to relax, chill out, I guess. I'm just gonna scrape everything off. I'm looking at time. We might not have time to do rainbow frosting, so I might have to save that and do it as a quick live later, and then you can come back to it. But I do want to show you the piping techniques and things. There is quite a lot around going on and things. So like I say, it's nice and smooth, and it's just coming straight off as I bring my balloon whisk through. So where's my bowl? Get rid of that. So we've got a nice big thick bowl of buttercream. We'll talk then about some colours. I'll colour one now as well. So I'll pipe with just a straightforward vanilla buttercream, but I'm just going to take out some and we'll talk about colouring. Then I'll do a rainbow, maybe do a rainbow video separately and put it up on the side. But so I want to, my plan with the colour was I was going to do like a 3-colour buttercream we could use for a rainbow. and then do some straightforward vanilla ones as well. So let's talk about this. So I've just taken out just a good couple of scoops there of buttercream for our colour. Now, colouring, if you're doing things like with fruit, like raspberries and strawberries, they're going to have their own natural colour as well. They are going to come through. Strawberries have that really blush colour, so they're really, really pastel pink, whereas the raspberries have a bit more of that deep red, purpley, pinky colour. So they will come through, but remember, they're natural, so they're not going to have an intense colour unless you add a real lot of it. We don't want to do that again because it's going to slacken our buttercream. So instead, what you can do to supplement it is add a little bit of colour. Now, years ago, food colourings were all like in little bottles, a bit like this again, and you've got the colour and you can still get it. But like our flavours, like adding things to it, it's going to slacken our mixture. So we really want to try and stay away from adding anything extra to the liquid to our buttercream because it's just going to get runny. So you'll have started to see, cake decorators have been using some funky cheese, but you'll be starting to see things in the supermarkets now called gel food colours. This is a Dr. Oetker one. I think somebody went, oh, I won't use it, so you might as well have it. I've got this in my cupboard, but they come in like a little tube. You might see you get the icing tubes, like this. And these are more and more on the shelves in the supermarket. I think the stores are doing their own as well. But these are great. And mainly with the gel colours is they're concentrated. So the best thing is you only need a tiny little bit, whereas the old-fashioned, the liquid ones, you'd need to add quite a lot to get the colour through. So you can buy them in the supermarkets, a bit like this, in a little tube. Or you might see them in a little pot in places like Hobbycraft. I've got some that are buried away in the cupboard. Like people like Wilton do them, or you might see Sugar Flare, and Sugar Flare tend to be a lot more around the natural colours for people that are doing sugar floristry and things like that. And then more like when you open it up, it's more like a thick paste. And you just need a tiny bit. They're concentrated. I've used these since they came out. Rainbow Dust have created these things called Pro Gels. You can get these now more and more all over the place. They're in Hobbycraft, they're online. They're really good. They're Rainbow Dust are a company that have been around for a long time. I've used their products for ages. But these come in a little tube. I think when they released it, I bought one of every one. And they will last for a long time. It says see end of tube, but I can't see. This has still got like a couple of years on it. But they do them in all sorts. So I've just got a few here. I've got a yellow one, a red, purple, strawberry for the pink because I've run out of pink, bright green, aqua, and sky blue. And let's do the straw. Let's do strawberry. There's not a lot left in this. So they come in a little tube, and you're just going to squeeze out the end. It's a bit like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. They sometimes can block up, so you just use a little cocktail stick just to open the end out. And you don't need a lot. They are really concentrated. So don't just squeeze it all out. Just squeeze she says a little bit. Come on. Off you come. Let's get a spoon. Squeeze a little bit out. One play the ball. In. Let's see how that goes. Just squeeze a little bit, and with a spoon, mix it through. So it's always better to add a little and build it up. As you can see, this, well, you can't because the light, it started to come through pink. You give it a good mix. So, and this is another good reason for having that nice smooth buttercream, is that mixing the colour through, again, it's easy. I'm not having to fight it. So, oh, light. No! It's a lot pinker than it looks there. So this is a strawberry one. This is strawberry, so it's pinky ready. And the other thing is you can mix them up. So if you've got just the basic colours, which they do as a pack, I'm just going to add a little bit more for a little bit brighter pink. You can mix them together. What I tend to do then is mix the two colours individually as things like, and then add a little of one to the other until I get the colour that I'm looking for. So this will keep mixing through. And this is pink. There. That's how I'd mix just my colours, just separately, and then put them all together. But we're not doing that for this one because I haven't got time. Well, I have, but you'll be here till Christmas. But I want to show you piping, and that's where we're going to go to next. So, things. I will link everything below and all the links as well for the blog. Piping bags wise, you can get the fabric ones online, which are great. I just find if I'm using them for buttercream, they get really greasy inside. So you need to wash them really well, turn them inside out, get really hot soapy water, cut through the fat on them from the buttercream to really get them dried out, cleaned out, and then make sure they're well dried as well. You don't want to be putting buttercream into a wet bag. I use disposable ones, and I try and reuse them, to be quite honest. And you can get them on Amazon. There are ones now that are biodegradable and things like that. These are chef pastry bags, so they're quite big, because I used to do a lot of cupcake icing, but you can get smaller ones. And they come on a roll in about 100. You can get them all sorts of places, Lakeland as well, ones that say they're anti-slip grip and all sorts. So this is our piping bag. So talking of our nozzles then, we've got a couple of different ones. We've got things like round nozzles. These are things that you might see where you get a smooth dome of a buttercream on the top, or like a really smooth swirl. Now I've got two here. One this size, it's about 1 centimetre or so at the end here, and then this one that is slightly smaller. When I'm doing cupcakes, I want to get a nice swirl on the top, and when I pipe it, I want it to act as a be able to build up on it. So I try and avoid using the smaller nozzles, because this isn't going to, when we pipe it, it's only going to give us a thin ribbon of buttercream for us to build on. So I try and go with these that are about 1 centimetre or so across in diameter. And this is going to help us build our swirl up. These are the round ones. We've also got some things. These are cool. This has got lots of little holes in the end. This is a grass tip nozzle. So if you're doing things like hair, or you want to create a football pitch, you can use things like this. Works perfectly with buttercream. Just squeeze it out and it comes out in big long strands. This is a grass nozzle. These are one of my favourites. Again, I've got two sizes. We've got the small one here and then the larger one here. And these have got lots of tips on the end. These are French tip nozzles. And you might see them, a lot of pastry chefs use them if they're putting cream into an eclair, and you'll see it, and it's got lots and lots of little ridges all around the side. That's what this nozzle here will do. It gives a really lovely finish. And if you do a swirl as well, you'll get all those little edges to it. So this is a French tip nozzle. You can see it's quite open. The ends are sticking straight out. This here, I've got two of them. less teeth on here, as you can see. But this is rounded off at the end. So this is a round tip nozzle, and they call it a star nozzle. And this is going to give us a sort of Mr. Whippy style swirl, you know, the soft swirl ice cream. But it's because it's rounded, it's going to be a lot softer as it comes out. It's not going to be as defined. This is really nice, sort of classic cupcake swirl, really. And they're those. And again, they're about 1 centimetre across at the end. I've got red colour everywhere. This is one of my favourites. This is a Wilton 1E, and it's a bit like our French tip with lots of bits, but again, it's like the one we just looked at where it's closed over, rounded at the end. It gives a really nice look to the finish. And I tend to use this a bit like the round, smooth nozzle for creating domes on top of the cupcakes. So it comes out as like a big poofy cushion. But the one that we're going to look at, and the one that everybody tends to use, and you'll see the decorators using a lot of, is this one. This is the Wilton 1M. It's an open star nozzle, and this is not as wide as these, as the wider ones I'm saying. It is probably the most versatile because it's open, it's not so narrow. But this is what most people are going to use for things like a Mr. Whippy style cupcake, things like rosettes and ruffles, and those ones where you see if they've piped flat on top of the cake and you get that really nice rose looking effect. That's those. And that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to pop these two into a piping bag. We'll get on and do some icing. So these are the nozzles. I'll go through everything. I'll pop it all in the thing, and I'm in the process of writing a really long post with everything as well. But if there's any questions or anything afterwards, or you think about it, just a moment, you can drop me a line. It's not a problem at all. So with our big piping bag, we're going to fit our nozzle. So there's two ways. You can line it up against here, and we can cut our bag beneath it, or you can pop it in. When we cut our bag, we're looking for that open section, if you think of your nozzle, to sit sort of midway against our nozzle. We don't want it too close to here, because if we knock it or we squeeze it, or it can get in the way of the buttercream coming out of our piping tip, and we don't want that because it's going to give us a funny look to our swirl. If it's too close to this edge, if our buttercream is too, if we're having to force it out of the piping bag, it's not soft enough, or we're just a bit heavy-handed, it's just going to pop straight out the end. You can get things like couplers where you can just put that onto the end of the bag, and it means you can change over the nozzles. You just unscrew it and screw the next one on. They're okay. I tend to find that they just become another thing I have to clean up, or just another thing that just goes wrong, or it's not quite right on the bag, and the whole thing goes. So this is the technique you'll find a lot of people do, and I'm just going to then pop my nozzle straight into my bag so I can see it in there. I'm just going to get a rough idea of where I want it to be. So here, and just go up a little bit more, push it, and then she hopes just cut across there with the thing. So as you can see, the nozzle sits about, part of the bag sits about halfway down our nozzle. So that's good. Filling wise, a lot of people you'll see bending it over the top, holding it, filling it with one hand and using the other hand here as a help to scrape it off. Easiest way, if you've got a non-glass cup, all that will do that, but get a glass or something like that, just pop our bag in, straight over the top and open it out. So our nozzle is sat in the bottom there, and we've got plenty of room. We can then have both hands free to scrape our buttercream out. And into our piping bag. I'm not going to put all of it in, but I'm going to put a little bit in. I'm going to move this out of the way for the moment. It means I can then pull it up like that. Now, I will do rainbow cupcakes with 3 colours, but if you're doing 2 colours, you can use this as a really easy way of getting those 2 colours in the back. When you've got it open like this, and you've got the opening at the top, you can, with your spatula or your spoon, put 1 colour on one side and pull it up there, and then fill the other side with your other colour, so you can get 2 in at the same time. The rainbow technique that I will do, and I'll do separately, is we're going to pipe it out and put some cling film and then wrap it up and then put that inside of here. But you can do that as an easy way. So we've got our buttercream on our bag. I'm just going to give it a little push down to the end. Again, that's the thing about it being really nice and soft. It wasn't having to force it down, just a little squeeze of the hand. So, we're getting there. I did bring a cake stand so I can show it up high. So, we've got our cupcakes that we made last night. I'm just going to do a couple here for you. And pick some out. Okay, these are just a regular chocolate recipe. They have got a little bit of a strange wonk on some of them, but it's fine. So we've got our cupcakes. On some of these, we are going to do like a pinata style. I did say, just going back to that just quickly, is I have so many offcuts, ends of sprinkles that I've just got in a jar and I'm not using because they're not right. So what I've done is I've put them into just an old jam jar, and you can buy sprinkle mixes and they're so expensive. I've got one here. These little ones, they're fabulous mix, and they're obviously mixed to all the colour, but I think that jar is like 3 or 4 quid, which is quite expensive. But what I did last night is I just went through the cupboard and I had so many of them, there's a whole box of empty sprinkle tins, is put them into a big jam jar, and I've just made up my own mix, and it's really pretty. It's got balls and confetti and sprinkles and hearts and butterflies in. So I'm going to use this for the pinata cupcakes. And to do that just quickly, is you can, if you're doing a filled cupcake, you can use a sharp knife, just gently go around the top. Don't go all the way to the bottom, because when you peel it, everything's going to fall out the end. You just take your cupcake, and what I try to do and use is an apple corer, and just pop that in the top of my cake and just gently give it a twist about halfway down. And then it pulls out. I've got a perfect hole there, but I've also got my core that I can then put back in. So if this was a pinata cupcake, now I just give it a fill with the, give them a mix up. There seems to be a bit of sugar there, but give it a, fill the cupcake there with my sprinkles. I think I've even got some letters in there. I must have had a few letter ones left over. And I can then take my core from I've just taken out. I won't get all of that back in because obviously it's got sprinkles, but I can just put the top bit in like that. So the apple corer is great for filling cupcakes and just getting our things back. Like I said, you can do it with a sharp knife, just don't go all the way to the bottom. And I tend to, if I'm doing that, just do it at an angle and swill it around the cupcake. So that's our filled one. Let's pipe. Let's pipe. This is nervy. So buttercream in my piping bag. I've got my 1M nozzle in there. Now, what I tend to do is you can chop some of this off if you want, if you've got big bags. Because I'm used to, I used to be decorating a lot at a time, so I'd fill it as much of buttercream as I want. So I'll just get rid of that so you can see a little bit better. And I twist it round at the top, and then I hold that between my thumb and my forefingers. And so I've got this grip here on the top of my piping nozzle. It means I can squeeze from the top. I'm not holding it halfway down. So if I hold it halfway down, this lot's going to come up out my piping bag, and the only bit that's going to come out onto my cupcake is this below. So I spin that round at the top, and I hold it, oh, the camera, just in the palm like that, and it means I've got a good grip on the top, and this hand there is free to guide it. So, and then I just squeeze gently, again, having that really nice soft buttercream there is perfect. So for our first pipe we're just going to do a classic swirl, so Mr. Whippy swirl. I'm going to just move that one out of the way. And we're going to start above our cupcake. If we start decorating here or at an angle, we're going to end up with a wonky swirl. We want to try as much as we can to be over the top. And that I would normally do it down here on the work surface. You could, you've got a position over the top. So we start in the centre, just to give it something there, and then we're going to come out to the edge of the cupcake case with our swirl, and when we get back around to where we started, we're just going to lift up and onto that swirl, onto that line that we've just piped. And that's why I said having those thicker, wider nozzles is better than having the thin ones. It just gives us a bit more of an area to work on. We're just going to step it in slightly. I'm just going to keep coming up, doing that and repeat until we get to the top. When we get to the top, we're just going to release the pressure and pull up, and we'll finish it off. This is a classic swirl. And when you are icing, make sure you leave a reasonable gap between your nozzle and the cake. If your nozzle is right close to the cake, again, your buttercream is not going to come out, your nozzle's going to obstruct it, and it's just not going to come up. So with our hand at the top squeezing and our second hand here guiding, I'm going to start squeezing, and there's my buttercream. I'm going to come out to the edge of my case. I'm stepping up and in. Keep going to the top and pull up. We have our buttercream swirl. It's a little bit to the side, but it's great. So this now is ready. If you are decorating anything like this, then you want to be adding any sprinkles whilst your butter's still soft. These are going to have mini cookies on the top. So, and I'll finish them off later, but not the cookies, the cupcakes. But you can just, it's nice and soft just to be able to pop one there in the top. This is just our classic Mr. Whippy soft serve swirl. And in terms of decorating, use anything. I've got things like foam unicorns, ice creams, aero bubbles, sprinkles, like I say, cookies, whatever you want to put on. That's just a classic swirl there. Now, Rosette is the other one that you'll see, and this is the one I did on Amita's wedding cake. It was a big 4-tier wedding cake, and we had these rose swirls all up the side, and you might see them out and about on cakes and things, and this is where it looked. It's a flat swirl, and when you look at it from top down, it looks like a rosette or a rose from it. And people used to love doing them with the two-tone colour, so you get that edge to it. So instead of staying on the top like we did here and building up, this time we're going to stay flat. We're keeping it all on one plane. But again, we're going to start from the middle of the cupcake, but instead of coming straight out to the edge, we're going to gently start swirling round and round and round. We're drawing a spiral with the buttercream as it comes out. Then when we get to the end, again, release the pressure and just let it pull away for the finish of your swirl. So again, hand there, and this is still using the 1M nozzle. And I'm going to start in the centre and then just gently still squeezing all the way round, out, out, out to the edge, and then just finish. You can't really see it on this light, I'm afraid. So you end up with this rose centre. This little bit here where we started the swirl is where it looks like the rose is unfolding in the side. And you can use wider nozzles. You don't have to use the 1M. You can use the wider nozzles, and you can also use the different sorts of nozzles. It doesn't say that you have to use this nozzle to do this well. You can use things like the French tip. It will give you a really different texture, something different as well. Yeah. So we've got our swirl and our rosette. Other things people like to do with this, things like a ruffle. So it's like our classic swirl where we're doing Mr. Whippy, but we're not going to build. We are going to let it have a little bit closer to our cupcake. So we're sort of building a little ruffly bit around the side. So again, start in the centre. We're going to do the same action, start in the centre and build our swirl up. We're going to hold a bit close and we're just going to sort of pause a little bit more, give it a little bit more of a ruffly. And it's just the same, it's just so this is, again, I'll take pictures for you, but this is more of a more open than the classic Mr. Whippy swirl. It's got a little bit more of a softer edge to it. It's not so sharp because we've held the nozzle closer to the cake and we've been slower in how we've done that. It means that the buttercream's sort of been coming out and then fighting a little bit against itself. So it's really nice and you sort of gets that wrinkly bit in our buttercream edge. I really like this. It's a lot softer than the classic swirl, and it just sort of feels a bit more classic. I think the soft serve classic swirl, it does remind me of ice cream cone very much. So the last thing I want to show you is like the beehive. They call it a beehive. This is what I've been talking about, is where it's a cushion or a pillow. Something is softer. You just get that mound, and you'll see, if you've been on the website, you'll see it with the chocolate mocha cupcakes. They are they're quite. They've got 2 mounds of buttercream on them. That's got a really smooth edge to it, and that's using the round nozzle tip, but I'm going to use a French tip. This one is the one I'm saying, the one just with all the spiky edges, just for the last one. And I realised it's going a while, so I'm just going to pop this in here. And again, measure my tip, cut the end off, and bring it through. And what did I do with the buttercream? Add some buttercream into our piping bag. And pull it up. So here we're going to do a beehive swirl, or I call it like a pillow, a cushion. I typically do it with, like I said, with the smooth nozzle. You get that smooth really smooth edge to it. But I'm going to do it with our French tips. This is the one with all the little teeth, but it's open at the end. So let me see if I can find a. Let's go with this cupcake. So whereas these we've been building height and have been moving the nozzle, with this one what we're going to do is we're going to flood the cake basically. So we're going to hold it about a centimetre away, 2 actually. Can't judge my distances. About 2 centimetres. We start there and then put it up to about 2 centimetres away. But as we're doing, we're just going to keep pushing, keep squeezing the buttercream out. And what's going to happen is it's going to come out to the sides, it's going to pillow up, and we're going to end up with that sort of fingers crossed foam section. So we're going to just start squeezing. We're not moving the cake at all, the buttercream at all, and it is literally like that. So this has filled. Oops. This has filled our cupcake case, and you can't. The light, I'm afraid, with the window there, it has filled, and it's got a dome, and it's because we've used this French tip. It's got lots of little edges there, and it's got a little bit of a ruffle to start with. If we're using the smooth nozzle, it literally is just a smooth finish to it. So that's our last one. So we've got the 4 different techniques. You can do this with any nozzle as well. We've got our classic Mr. Whippy soft serve swirl. We've popped a little cookie in the top. We've got a rose swirl rosette. So this is the flat one starting in the centre, coming out. We've got our ruffle, which again is a bit like the soft serve Mr. Whippy, but we've left it. We've given a little bit of time to get ruffly and open out as the buttercream comes out the nozzle. And we've also got our beehive, but with the French tip. So we've got all these lovely little edges and they come through like that. So they're all ready to be decorated. We have been going for 1 hour and 15. So I'm going to stop there today, and I will do the rainbow buttercream swirls as a slightly little separate video, and I'll pop it up. I'll probably do that. I'll do that whilst I've got everything out. I'll do that and pop it out on the page later as well. But we've been through a no-fail buttercream, whipping up, getting it really nice and airy. Talked about our butter, the different sorts of butter, why we want room temperature butter, why we would tend to use a full fat butter over a cake or a baking butter. We've looked at colours and flavourings and when to add it, what they can do to slacken your buttercream, how you can use different things do it. And we've looked at our different nozzles and how we pipe and what we're doing with them as well. I think there is so much still to do. I used to teach this as a 3-hour class. So I've condensed a lot so far into 1 hour and 20, but there's loads and loads to do. I will talk, I would like to say I will do the rainbow as a separate one. There's things that we haven't covered like Russian piping nozzles. They are amazing. But I will probably do them as maybe a little separate video. And I've got a few ideas of things that we can do and how we can do it. But I'm hoping that it's given you an hour and a bit of a Sunday morning, ready to go and enjoy Father's Day and summer solstice, although it really doesn't feel like summer here. We're off to my in-laws this afternoon for the first time in 3 months for a socially distanced afternoon tea in the garden, which I'm quite looking forward to. And there will be cake, although they can't. Some of them can't eat it because it's gluten. They're celiac. But we've covered an awful lot. I will be writing a really comprehensive post. It might not be up straight away this week because there is a lot to get through. But all of this. But as usual, if you've got any questions, any correct comments, drop everything in below, drop me an email, drop me a message, ping it on the Facebook post, and yeah, it's all there. And I'm really pleased that quite a few people have joined and stayed around for so long as I made waffled on about buttercream this morning. Hopefully it's given you some ideas as well for next time. All these techniques can be applied to cakes. You can use them for piping cream on top of cheesecakes and everything as well. The same sort of thing. There's plenty of things to do with it. But thank you again. Next week is the last kitchen live for a little while I just take a break and get the old brain cells working. Next week we're doing no churn ice cream, but we're doing it as a black forest ice cream sandwich. So we're going to bake some chocolate cakes and then we're going to fill it with like a no churn black forest ice cream with some fresh cherries and all sorts. And then we'll pop it in the freezer. But that's going to be the last one for a little while. I will be popping on, obviously, on the live on the Facebook page, and probably going to do like an FAQ sort of thing as well, because we're getting quite a lot of questions now. So we'll figure it out. But this, thank you as always for joining me. And I shall see everyone next week. Have a lovely weekend. Let the rest of your weekend. Have a lovely week. Don't work too hard if you're back at work. And I shall see you soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.